Hello everyone, I am Violet Lange and this is
Jason Lange.
and I've been so looking forward to doing this for a very long time, having Jason as a guest on one of our Facebook Lives. And tonight we want to talk about devotion and commitment on the path of love. Now, a lot of times women come to me looking for, how do I get into a committed relationship? How do I actually win in love? And for them, winning means being in a committed partnership, probably leading to marriage. And Jason works with men, and men come to him for a variety of things, but what are mainly the things that men come to you for?
On my end, men often just want to know how to get a woman's interest and how to approach her and how to initiate that first connection in a meaningful way.
So it seems like that men are more interested in how to succeed in dating, and women tend to be more interested in how to succeed in love. And what I think is interesting within this context is the idea of devotion and commitment. So oftentimes in order to get to commitment, I will coach women on staying devoted to themselves, devoted to love, devoted to their own personal practices to integrate their feminine and masculine energy. And Jason, what are some of the things that you do with men to help them stay devoted to commitment, or at least stay devoted to being the best man that they can be?
So I teach and work with men around how to just get more connected to themselves. You know, that's what you do with the ladies, and that's what I do with the men. And we do that through different embodiment practices, which may be a little different than some of the practices for women. Men tend to grow and thrive the most when they're challenged, when there's challenge to their system of physical, mental, or spiritual types. So we work on embodiment, and then we work on getting clarity about who they are, what they want, and where they're going. And once that becomes kind of crystallized, men become a lot more interesting.
That's true. One of the things that I fell for about Jason is that he had such a strong vision about his life, what he wanted in his life, his creative pursuits, his calling, his interests and his passions. And the first night that we met at a meetup event. I had never met him before other than in my dream. I had a dream about him 3 weeks before we actually met. But one of the things that I really loved is that we were talking after the meetup, and I was really interested in him, and it felt like the sparks were flying. And then he goes, well, I have to go meditate. And everyone from the meetup event still hanging around was about to go get a drink at a bar on the corner. And I was thinking inside, what? You're talking to me and we're having this great time and you got to go meditate? But inside, I was actually feeling super inspired and turned on by his integrity and his commitment to his practice. I was like, oh, I've been looking for a man of integrity, someone who does what they say they will, and someone who has consistency, and someone who has a focus in their life, not just playing video games all the time. And so it was really cool to feel that in him and to feel my piqued interest. So that definitely works. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure does.
And speaking of our story, I'm curious, Jason, do you want to share what inspired you to become more committed to me, to ask me to be your girlfriend, and then eventually to propose and ask me to be your loving wife?
Well, I think I'm a good example of what happens for a lot of different men, in that as we get clear about our life vision and where we're going and what we want, the question often becomes then, can I imagine this person in that vision and supporting that vision? And so, starting off not knowing you, certainly feeling attracted to you and interested in you based on, the circumstances of the event we met in, there was a process of actually getting to know you over time and feeling like, yes, this is someone who I can both imagine in my life. And I think a deeper thing for a lot of us men is not only that, but that being in relationship with you and committing to you would actually further my ability to be on purpose in life and do the things I want to do, which for me are around creating media and serving men and helping people wake up. And so the more time we spent together, the clearer it got, yeah, this is a real deal. This is someone that I could really create more with than I could without, which I think is a really cool thing. And it's also, I would say the other thing that really kind of inspired me, that I was very clear about before I met you, and that was part of, getting to know you in some sense, was wanting someone who is dedicated to their path as I was. And you were, doing your own things. You were a deep yogi and meditator and doing a lot of the things I'm interested in. And so that was very attractive to me. And it was cool to feel like, wow, she knows a bunch of stuff that I don't know, and I know some stuff that she doesn't know. So how fun would it be to get together and share what we know?
I love that, obviously. The feminine thrives on appreciation. Jason was saying earlier the masculine thrives on challenge. The feminine thrives on appreciation. We need it all the time. So I love hearing him tell our story. And that was really helpful about kind of structurally, like our overlapping interests, that I could add something to his life or make it easier for him to be on purpose. And I'm curious, was there anything about the way that I showed up, or that a lot of men you work with want a woman to show up, to make it, I don't want to say easier, but like to make it feel like, yes, this is enriching my life, like on a day-to-day basis or with our energy, or any examples of that?
I mean, the fact, again, that you had a practice and that you were doing them was cool, because sometimes, you'd be doing your practices, and then I would notice the different energy that you brought back to the relationship and our time together. And I would also say just, and this goes for men and women, I think, it's just that because you had your own things, you had resources as well. You just had resources outside of us and other things to do, which creates some natural space in a good way for the relationship, where not everything had to be us all the time, but that you had friends, you had communities, you had things you were involved in the same way I did. A lot of which has begun to overlap now that we're married, but still there's different things. We do some different things, and having that was a huge relief for me, particularly as an introvert. Sometimes I just need time alone, and when you're with a partner, and I've been with previous partners that was more of a struggle. That if I needed time alone, then that was really hard for them because they didn't necessarily have other things going on. So that was definitely one big thing, was just feeling that you could resource yourself, and so that when we came together, it felt like we could create more.
Yeah, and what Jason means by that is having a practice, having something you devote yourself to, a ritual or something that you do on a daily basis that connects you back to yourself and also connects you back to the feminine energy within you. If you want to be the predominantly feminine energy in your relationship. And he said something about, I would do my practices and I would show up with a different energy. Traditionally, the feminine is considered to be the energy, the vitality, the life force, the spark, and it's always changing. It's one of its definitions is just that it's change. And so never underestimate, ladies, that you have the great capacity to shape and give life to a man and to the relationship. Sometimes we think, well, no man is choosing me, or, it's all up to him, it's all in his terms, but it's really not true. It's a dance between his vision and his direction, and your flow and your energy and your spark and your change and your movement, which is the good, bad, and the ugly. You don't have to show up just sweet and perfect and nice all the time. You can actually bring your full self, but in a skillful way, so that the relationship is interdependent instead of codependent, like, where are you? I need you. And that is not helping for freedom, or just so independent that you seem like, the cool girl. And oftentimes when I'm kind of like a hot mess and getting really emotional, I'll tell Jason, like, I just want to be the cool girl. You're not going to like me because I'm just so emotional. And, what is that like for you in those times when I'm bringing a not so sweet energy?
I love it. I appreciate it. I think that's one of the other things that magnetized me to you to go deeper, was a feeling of she's not holding back, or not disappearing.
I don't hold back.
In the sense of, like, if something hurt, you let me know. If something felt good, you let me know. But like, we really need feedback as men. Like, we're desperate for it. We want it. And sometimes there's this belief that, well, I think from some women, that if I share it, he'll get scared or he'll run away. And well, that's how he's not the right man. The right man will welcome that feedback, because then he can better be connected to you and better love you.
Yes, I love that. Be better connected to you and better love you. And men, I find, this is a generalization, men and humans in general, like, they want to love. They want to love a woman. They want her to feel good. But they might not always know how you're thinking or feeling, or you're not necessarily giving them signals that are interpreted in the way that you might want them to be. Or sometimes we have our own fears or insecurities or vulnerabilities. A lot of times women will say, I don't know how to be vulnerable. I'm a single mom and I've been running my own business for many years, and I went through a divorce and I had to restart financially, and I don't know how to do anything other than just get stuff done and take care of things. And when we talk about being more vulnerable, it doesn't mean that you just give up your life or that you become the damsel in distress. Like, although if you want to do that every once in a while, that might be fine too. It's fun to play with the different energies. But it's about responsible vulnerability, not just vomiting on the other person or projecting onto them or feeling like you've got to share your life story on the first date. But it's about sharing the truth of the moment and how you're being impacted by the other person, which is a part of relational work. And Jason co-leads an organization called Authentic Los Angeles, which is all about relational work, where we're going deeper into the connection instead of just talking about things on the surface, like, you know, where we grew up or what we had for dinner last night or what we're doing this weekend. So do you want to talk a little bit about the relational, you know, element of connection?
It takes practice. First and foremost, you know, this is an actual skill and actual muscles we have to build in our friendships, in our families, and absolutely in our intimate relationships. And without that, it can be hard. It can just be very hard to stay connected. Because one of the beautiful things about relationship, you know, from our viewpoint, is that it's there to help us heal. And so in relationship, we're going to bump up against our edges, against our sore spots, against our wounds. And being able to talk about that and stay connected throughout is really important. And these different tools that we practice and we teach the people we work with and that we play with, and you know, in our community here in Authentic LA, really give you an opportunity to learn how to do that and put that into play on a moment-to-moment basis to really get real with, like, hey, what's going on right here between us, and not hold that back, which was something, you know, we experienced very early on together, just like an actual realness.
Yeah.
You know, I tell the guys I work with that, you know, one of the things to look out for is the difference between, is to really look for ease in that relationship isn't always easy. So you can't expect it to just be easy. Like, oh, I met this person and it's magically perfect forever. It's rarely going to happen. But there's an ease that comes from the ability to just be relationally present with each other, of like, yeah, here's what I want and I'm in. And maybe there's struggles, maybe there's strife, but there's like a real just, I want this level of bottom lining it, as we might call it, or just getting real. And so that feeling of ease was something we experienced pretty early on, even though it wasn't always easy in terms of navigating, you know, starting a relationship and where we were each at and all the different things that come up. But there was a feeling of like, oh, she's in and I'm in.
Yes. And I think oftentimes as women and as people, we think if we have a fight that it's over, or if we have a disagreement, it's over, or if someone has a different opinion than us, it's over. And we can get really anxious or really avoidant when it comes to conflict or just disagreements. And what I loved about getting to know Jason is that he was like, hey, this is just starting. Like, okay, conflict, good. This is just the beginning, because he had such presence and confidence in working through that. And these relational tools about speaking what's true in the moment, being vulnerable in a way that still has responsibility, understanding masculine and feminine energy, you know, those are things that we teach our clients so that they can have amazing dates, and that those dates turn into great relationships that are full of connection, instead of feeling like the date needs to go south, or that there has to be conflict, or that the focus of the date is again on the logistics. It's so easy to just focus on the logistics or on the surface level things, but then have the relationship feel hollow. And I know exactly how that goes, because I was married in my 20s for 5 years in what ended up being a sexless relationship, and we just lost connection. It's like the connection just seeped out of the relationship every day more and more, until we were just roommates, and even worse, we were barely even talking the way that you might with a roommate, barely even hanging out. And so I spent 10 years single and frustrated and trying to learn how to date in between that relationship, which ended when I was 27, and then meeting Jason. And during that time, you know, I tried everything, but one thing that I found I didn't get from a lot of my experiences was integrity. I was really looking for a man of integrity, and that became so important to me. And it was refreshing when he was able to share, like, yeah, you know, I have a different opinion, or I disagree about this thing, but what is that bringing up for you, or what's alive in you, or what are you excited about? Like, there's just a sense of possibility and curiosity, And oftentimes in dating, we might be coming from a place of scarcity, scarcity around men or around partners, or scarcity around love, like, will I be loved? Am I lovable? Is there something wrong with me? Or we might just be bringing old mindset from the past or old heartache from the past into that current moment. And if something comes up in the moment that's tender, yes, it's good to share that. But if we're not able to do that in a way that feels connected to ourselves, it can feel frightening. So vulnerability is a word that just gets tossed around, and I want everyone to become more vulnerable, but not at the expense of your own nervous system, and not at the expense of feeling like you've got to do that just in order to get a date with someone or to take it to the next level, because you want to make sure that that person is actually attuning to you. And the best way to know that is if they're attuning to themselves, and if they're attuning to this third space in the relationship.
And it's that third space. That's where all the magic is in terms of devoting to that or being committed to that. And that's where the real practice is it's not so much a theoretical, oh, we're committed, but moment to moment coming back to connection, this third space between us that is us. And that's a real practice that takes practice both on each of our sides in terms of knowing how to regulate ourselves, take care of ourselves, and then come back to connection when it's needed. And that's part of why I just came in. I was all in the more I got to meet her, because it was like, this is real. We can keep, even with the ups and downs, we keep coming back to this connection. And that's so important, because that's where real trust is built. That it's not theoretical at that point, but it's like, and we can come back. We've been able to come back and mend and keep building and keep getting more and more real.
I was totally shocked when he proposed to me. We had only been dating about 8 months, and we had only been exclusive, like boyfriend-girlfriend, about 5 months. But he proposed, and I was like, whoa, yes, of course. But it was amazing, and it was surprising, and it was early, and it was delightful, and one of the best days of my life. And I do agree, it's this ability to have our ruptures, but then repair. It's kind of like you go to the gym, you work out, your muscle gets worn down, but then it rebuilds itself, and that part of it is really, really important, and it enables us to navigate some ups and downs. We've had some challenges even in the last year, but we've been able to come to connection so much faster. When we first moved in, I think one of our first big fights, it felt like we weren't connecting for, I don't know, maybe a day or a day and a half or so. But then now we'll have little things come up, and sometimes big things come up, but we can handle them in 5 or 10 minutes. And a lot of the women that I work with and the men that Jason worked with, they get the tools to be able to handle disagreements or conflict or fear or anxiety or curiosity about, does this person like me? Are they on the same page? Do they want commitment? Do they want the same things I want? How can I trust them? What's their relationship history been? These are all big, important things to talk about as you're getting to know someone, and then to be able to navigate as your relationship is getting stronger and stronger. And it's easy for one or the other partner to just fall into an old pattern. So I think it's great if you can look for a partner who has some sort of practice or has some sort of commitment to self-development and growth, or at least a commitment to their own integrity and to being in the moment with you, being able to hold space. But it's going to be easier for them to hold space the more that you're connected to yourself and devoted to your own practices. If you're just tuning in, Jason and I have been talking about devotion, commitment, the phases of our relationship, how we became into commitment, what Jason found inspiring and nourishing enough to want to commit to me, and then the things that I found, deeply sexy in him, like I was talking about his vision, his sense of integrity, his connection to his heart and his body, and that's something we've kind of touched on. But when you're integrated between your mind, your body, and your heart, you're going to date way more effectively. You're going to be able to weed out the people that are not so connected to their body or to the moment, or not able to hold space for you for what you're going through, or not on the same page, versus just holding your breath and hoping that it works out, but then maybe repeating the same cycle, partner after partner, and feeling that, I had that with my first marriage, feeling that, disconnect.
Yeah, and I'll say just one last thing in terms of our commitment, and in one sense, maybe some people would say, oh, it's quick. You moved from just meeting each other to getting engaged, within...
In 8 months, yeah.
8 months. But what allowed that, which is, maybe a hard truth, I think, to swallow sometimes, is I knew what I wanted. I was very clear. I had been through some relationships, been single, gotten very clear about what I wanted and where my life was going. So from that frame, when the right person showed up, it was like a yes. And the truth is, you can't actually do that work for a guy. Mm-hmm. That's a journey he has to go on, almost, not all the time, but most often involving other men. Like learning, men grow with other men. And then once we know who we are, we come back and we're like, I'm in, or I know what I want. Which is why I was such a clear yes, the more we got to know each other. Even if by some frames it was fast, it was because I knew what I wanted. And the truth is, you may sometimes meet men who just aren't
don't know
clear around what they want and where their life is going. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be a difficult situation to navigate.
And it's not a black or white thing. You might be getting to know someone and they have clarity in certain parts of their life, and they have passion and purpose in certain parts of their life, and then other parts of their life that not so much. Or you might actually meet people that have an over-index of direction on their work life, but then an under-index on these relational skills or emotional intelligence skills. So it's not necessarily about, having a checklist or being on an interview, but I think more just a filtering of what your priorities are. Is your priority the person's career background, or is it that they're a person of integrity that's able to grow with you together and bring things to the surface? Or maybe there's a bit of everything. We all have our own mix. But ways that you can tell, like, if a man is clear on what he wants, is you can just ask him, like, what do you want in your life? It's not saying, like, are you ready to get married? You're just saying, what do you want in your life? What are you passionate about? What are you most excited about in your life? Like, what do you want to commit yourself to in the next 5, 10, 20 years? Like, what do you feel like your legacy would be? Now, I wouldn't ask those all in succession, because then that will feel like an interview. But, from time to time, it's okay to better understand kind of what's underneath this person that you're getting to know and getting to meet. And he may not have it all figured out, because none of us ever have it all figured out. But it's helpful to know what his relationship history has been, or what's been hard for him in his life, what's been heartbreaking for him. Maybe he lost a parent. Maybe an ex-partner cheated on him. Maybe he has a hard time answering any of those questions because he's not that connected to his heart, and that gives you a big clue as well. Like, if he just wants to check his phone or kind of deflect or not go there with you. I think a really healthy masculine has vulnerability, and a really healthy feminine has a sense of strength and courage to ask the difficult questions, even if you might be afraid of the answer. Better sooner rather than later. So anything else you want to say about commitment, devotion, the men that you work with?
There are definitely men that want relationships. I work with a lot of them, and they're not just out to date. They really want to find a life partner they can go very deep with. So just know that that's true. Finding them may be difficult and challenging at times.
Unless you have my help.
Unless you have Violet's help. But definitely know there are men. There are men who really do want to go deep with a partner and build a real life.
Thank you for saying that. I love hearing that, because it reminds me of, stories of women that I work with who are like, we're going to buy a new house, we're going to upgrade because we have this big vision. We don't want to be small anymore. We want to play full out. We want to really commit. We want to have the right things for our family. And so my personal belief, and I think Jason's too, is that the world is getting crazier. It's harder in many ways, economically and otherwise, in this world, in this life. And so we might think, well, men don't want to settle down, but as long as we're not taking away from their freedom, and I'm not talking about sexual freedom, but just like their sense of spaciousness in their life, their ability to make decisions, their ability to stay on purpose, their ability to feel nourished by friendships and by hobbies and by those things, like relationship can be one of the greatest gifts and one of the greatest openings that anyone can go through, man or woman. And so there are a lot of men that are looking for that gift, that are looking for that sense of possibility. And it makes life so much easier. I mean, the other day I was thinking about the laundry list of things that I never worry about anymore, that I would worry about when I was single. Everything from feeling safe in my home before I had my dog, to, just getting everything done around the house, to, what am I going to do this weekend? I don't have any dates planned, to, oh my God, my friend is getting married. I don't think I'm going to have anyone to bring there. Like, there's just a lot of things that were keeping my energy really hyped up, like looking for my partner. And part of this growth and part of this work is to bring some of that energy back to yourself, to nourish yourself, to cultivate your feminine energy, or tend your own garden, as I like to say, you know, and to honor your own values and integrity of what you're looking for, instead of feeling like you've got to settle. Like, I don't want anyone to feel like they have to settle. And at the same time, the more we can stay committed to speaking our truth and honoring the moment with these relational practices we talked about, then the easier it is to feel deep sense of trust in who you choose as your partner, knowing that they're committed to you and that they want to go the distance. So, yeah.
Totally. That's
like
part of the magic of the polarity, is the more you play full out, the more you'll start attracting people, other men that play full out as well. Mm-hmm. And we each just have to take the risk.
Oh, well, this has been so fun for me. Thank you, Jason, for taking the time out of your schedule to join us and connect with the women on my page and the people on my page. And thank you all for listening. I think Jason and I might pop in here every once in a while just to share and connect about the goodness and the richness of relationship and love. And thank you. Thank you for watching. Nice to see you, Taya and Rachel and Elizabeth. We will see you soon.
Good day here. Have a good day.
Thank you.